Commander Vexler of the Korthani Empire stood at the observation window of the orbital station, watching the blue and green planet below. Earth. The humans called it Earth, such a simple name for a world that had produced warriors unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. "The human delegation has arrived, Commander," said his aide, a young officer named Trell. "They brought their training materials as requested." Vexler turned from the window. His 4 arms folded across his broad chest, and his scaled face showed no expression. The Korthani had been warriors for 10,000 years. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost a war. Until they met the humans. The war had lasted only 3 months. 3 months of confusion, defeat, and something the Korthani had never experienced before: fear. The humans had not just beaten them. They had humiliated them. Warriors who had trained since birth could not match farmers and teachers who had only picked up weapons when the invasion began. Now, 5 years after the peace treaty, the Korthani had swallowed their pride. They had asked the humans for help. They wanted to learn. "Send them in," Vexler said. The door opened, and 3 humans walked into the room. 2 men and 1 woman. They wore simple gray uniforms with no decorations. They did not look impressive. They were soft, weak creatures with only 2 arms and thin skin. Yet Vexler had seen recordings of humans tearing through Korthani elite soldiers like they were children. The woman stepped forward. She was small, barely reaching Vexler's chest, but she moved with the quiet confidence of a predator. "Commander Vexler, I am Sergeant Major Sarah Chen. These are Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Webb and Master Sergeant Yuki Tanaka. We're here to assess your warriors and begin the exchange program." Vexler nodded. "I have prepared our finest warriors for your evaluation. They are the best of our entire fleet." "With respect, Commander," Chen said, "we'd like to start with your average soldiers, the ones you consider ordinary." This surprised Vexler. "Why would you want our weakest?" "Because that's where the real test is. Anyone can make elite soldiers good. The question is what you do with everyone else." Vexler did not understand, but he agreed. He led the humans through the station to the main training facility. Inside, 200 Korthani warriors stood at attention. They were young, fit, and eager. By Korthani standards, they were adequate soldiers, nothing special. Chen walked among them, studying each one. She asked questions through a translator device. "How long have you trained? What weapons do you use? How do you prepare for battle?" The answers were always the same. They had trained since childhood in formal combat schools. They used standard plasma rifles and energy blades. They prepared for battle through meditation and ritual combat exercises. After an hour, Chen returned to Vexler. "I've seen enough. These soldiers are technically skilled. Their form is excellent. Their discipline is strong." She paused. "But they will lose to humans every time." "That is why we asked for your help," Vexler said, his pride stinging. "Tell us what we lack." Chen looked at him for a long moment. "Everything, Commander. You lack everything that matters." She turned to her companions. "Show them Exercise 1." Webb and Tanaka walked to the center of the training floor. They faced each other and began to fight. But it was unlike any combat Vexler had ever seen. There were no formal stances, no ritual movements. It was chaos. They punched, kicked, grappled, threw each other to the ground. They fought dirty. They fought mean. They fought like animals. The Korthani warriors watched in shock. Some looked disgusted. This was not proper combat. This was barbaric. After 5 minutes, both humans were bruised and breathing hard. They stopped and faced the crowd. "That," Chen said, "is how humans train for close combat. No rules, no form, just survival." "This is madness," one of the Korthani officers said. "Where is the technique? Where is the honor?" "Honor is for tournaments," Chen replied. "War is about living. Your warriors learn to fight correctly. Our soldiers learn to fight effectively. Those are not the same thing." She walked to a wall display and pulled up images. This is a human military training exercise called Hell Week. Candidates must stay awake for 5 days while completing physical challenges. Many quit, many collapse. The ones who pass learn that their bodies can do far more than their minds believe. The Korthani stared at the images. They showed humans crawling through mud, carrying boats above their heads, running with heavy packs. They looked miserable. They looked broken. "You torture your own soldiers?" Trell asked. "We prepare them," Chen said. "When they face real combat, nothing surprises them. They have already been through worse." She showed more images. Humans jumping from aircraft. Humans swimming in freezing water. Humans fighting multiple opponents at once. Humans being sprayed with chemical agents and then forced to complete obstacle courses. "Your training is designed to build skill," Chen explained. "Our training is designed to break limits. Skill matters, but will matters more. The soldier who refuses to quit will beat the soldier with perfect technique every time." Vexler felt something strange in his chest. It might have been doubt. "Our warriors have strong will. We are Korthani." Chen smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Commander, with respect, your warriors have never been tested. They train in comfort, they eat well, they sleep well. They have never felt real suffering. When they face an enemy who has been through hell, they freeze, they panic, they die." She pulled up combat footage from the war. Vexler recognized the battle. It was the siege of Korath Station, where 5,000 Korthani warriors had been defeated by 300 humans. "Watch this soldier," Chen said, pointing to a human on the screen. "He's been shot twice. His arm is broken. He's lost half his squad. Watch what he does." On the screen, the wounded human kept fighting. He dragged himself behind cover, reloaded his weapon with one hand, and continued shooting. When his rifle jammed, he picked up a piece of debris and used it as a club. He fought for another 20 minutes before medical teams arrived. "That man is a high school teacher," Chen said. "He had only 2 years of military training, but he had been through our preparation programs. He knew how to suffer. He knew how to keep going when everything told him to stop." Vexler watched the footage in silence. He had seen this battle from reports and numbers. He had not truly understood what happened. "Your warriors are not weak," Chen continued. "They are untested. They have never met their limits because your training never pushes them there. The first time they face real hardship is in actual combat. By then, it's too late to learn." "What do you suggest?" Vexler asked. Chen looked at him with hard eyes. "We break them down and build them back up. We teach them that pain is temporary. We show them what they can really do." She paused. "It will not be pleasant. Many will quit. Some will hate us. But the ones who pass will be different soldiers." Vexler thought about the war. He thought about the shame of defeat. He thought about the warriors he had lost because they did not know how to suffer. "When do we begin?" he asked. Chen smiled. This time it was almost friendly. "Tomorrow morning, 0500 hours, and Commander, tell your warriors not to eat breakfast. They won't keep it down." The Korthani warriors would soon learn why humans were feared across the galaxy. It was not their weapons or their tactics. It was their willingness to endure what no sane species would tolerate. The training had not yet begun, and already Vexler felt afraid. The next morning came cold and dark. The orbital station's artificial lighting had been dimmed to simulate pre-dawn conditions. 200 Korthani warriors stood in the training bay, confused and uneasy. They had been told nothing about what to expect. Sergeant Major Chen stood before them with Webb and Tanaka at her sides. She held no weapon, carried no equipment. She simply waited. At exactly 500 hours, she spoke. "Starting now, you belong to us. For the next 40 days, you will do what we say when we say it without question. If you cannot accept this, leave now. There is no shame in knowing your limits." No one moved. The warriors looked at each other, uncertain but proud. They would not quit before the training even began. "Good," Chen said. Your first task is simple, run. She pointed to the track that circled the training bay. You will run until I tell you to stop. Begin. The warriors started running. They were fit and strong. Running was easy. They settled into a steady pace, expecting this to last perhaps an hour. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. Warriors began to slow. Their legs burned, their lungs screamed for rest, but Chen said nothing, she just watched. At the 4-hour mark, the first warrior collapsed. Medical staff rushed forward, but Chen waved them back. Get up, she said to the fallen warrior. You are not injured, you are tired, get up and run. The warrior tried. His legs shook. He managed a few steps before falling again. Your body can continue, Chen said. Your mind is telling you lies, it says you cannot go on. It is wrong, get up. The warrior got up, he ran. By the 6th hour, half the warriors had fallen at least once. Some had fallen many times. Chen made each one get up and continue. Only when a warrior showed signs of real medical distress did she allow them to stop. Finally, after 8 hours, Chen raised her hand. Stop. The warriors collapsed where they stood. Many lay on the ground gasping. Some vomited. A few were crying, though they tried to hide it. Lesson 1, Chen said, walking among the fallen warriors. You do not know your limits. Your training told you that you could run for 1 hour, maybe 2. You just ran for 8. You survived. Remember this feeling. Remember that your mind lied to you. She let them rest for 10 minutes. Then she made them get up again. Now we do strength exercises. The warriors groaned. Some looked ready to quit, but none did. The pride of the Korthani ran deep. For the rest of the day, Chen pushed them through exercise after exercise. Push-ups, sit-ups, lifting, carrying, climbing. Whenever a warrior said they could not continue, she made them continue anyway. Whenever someone collapsed, she made them get up. By evening, the warriors were destroyed. They had never experienced anything like this. Their bodies hurt in ways they did not know were possible. You have 30 minutes to eat, Chen said. Then we continue. One of the younger warriors, a female named Kira, raised her hand. Sergeant Major, when do we sleep? Chen looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. You don't. Not for the next 5 days. The warriors stared at her in disbelief. Human Special Forces candidates must stay awake for 5 to 6 days during their final training phase, Chen explained. We call it Hell Week. You will experience something similar. Sleep deprivation reveals who you truly are. It strips away everything except your core. By the end, you will know yourself better than you ever have. This will kill us, another warrior said. It will not, Chen replied. It will feel like dying, that is different. You will learn the difference. Commander Wexler watched from the observation deck above the training floor. His aide Trell stood beside him, looking horrified. This is barbaric, Trell said. They are torturing our warriors. No, Wexler said quietly. They are teaching them. I'm starting to understand. Understand what, Commander? Wexler watched as the warriors forced themselves to eat despite their exhaustion. He watched them help each other stand. He watched them prepare for another night of suffering. During the war, I could not understand how humans fought so hard. They were outgunned, outnumbered, outmatched in every way. But they never gave up. I thought it was something in their biology, something we could never match. He paused. Now I see it as training. They teach their soldiers that giving up is not an option. They show them that the body can endure far more than the mind believes. But at what cost? Trell asked. Look at them, Wexler said. Already they are changing. They are helping each other. They are finding strength they did not know they had. This is only day 1. Below, the warriors finished their meal and returned to training. Chen worked them through the night. Combat drills, obstacle courses, more running, more lifting. Whenever someone faltered, their companions helped them. Something was forming among the warriors, something that had not existed before. By dawn of the 2nd day, the warriors were stumbling zombies. Their eyes were hollow. Their movements were slow, but they were still standing. Chen gathered them together. You have survived one day. 40 more remain, though few will be this hard. What you feel now is the worst of it. The body adapts. The mind adapts. Each day will be easier than this one. I don't believe you, one warrior said. Chen smiled. You don't have to believe me, you just have to keep going. That is the second lesson. Belief is not required. Only action matters. Put one foot in front of the other. That is all. She sent them on another run. This time, she ran with them. Webb and Tanaka ran with them too. The humans were older than many of the warriors, but they kept pace easily. They had done this before many times. As they ran, Chen spoke to the warriors near her. Pain is not your enemy. Quitting is your enemy. Pain passes. Shame lasts forever. Remember this when your mind tells you to stop. The warriors ran, they suffered, they continued. On the third day, Chen introduced combat training, but it was unlike anything the Korthani had experienced. Forget your formal training, she said. Forget your techniques. Real combat is chaos. The enemy does not follow rules. You must learn to fight in any situation with any weapon in any condition. She had them fight while exhausted. She had them fight while carrying heavy weights. She had them fight in darkness. She had them fight in confined spaces. She had them fight while being sprayed with cold water. The warriors hated it. Their skills seemed useless. Their forms fell apart. They made mistakes they would never have made in normal conditions. Good, Chen said when they complained. Now you know what real combat feels like. Your perfect techniques are worthless when you are tired, scared, and hurting. You must learn to fight ugly. Effective beats pretty every time. She taught them human combat methods. Simple, brutal techniques designed for survival. How to fight when injured. How to use anything as a weapon. How to keep fighting when all seemed lost. Your species is stronger than humans, Chen said. You are faster, tougher, better equipped, but you fight like it is a sport. We fight like it is survival. That is why we won. By the end of the third day, the warriors could barely stand, but something had changed in their eyes. The weakness was still there, but so was something else. Determination, anger, will. They were starting to understand. On the fourth day, Chen introduced psychological training. This, more than anything, terrified the Korthani. She showed them images of death and destruction. She played recordings of screaming and explosions. She put them through scenarios designed to break their minds. Fear is natural, she told them. Every soldier feels fear. The difference is what you do with it. Weak soldiers are controlled by fear. Strong soldiers use it. She taught them breathing techniques to control panic. She taught them mental exercises to stay calm under pressure. She taught them to accept fear as a tool rather than an enemy. During the war, your warriors often froze when things went wrong, Chen said. They were trained for success, not failure. When their plans fell apart, they did not know what to do. Humans train for failure. We assume everything will go wrong. When it does, we are not surprised. We adapt. This was a revelation to the warriors. Their entire training philosophy was built on perfection. They practiced until they could execute moves flawlessly. They planned until every detail was accounted for. They were not prepared for imperfection. War is chaos, Chen said. The perfect plan never survives first contact with the enemy. You must learn to think in chaos, to act in chaos, to thrive in chaos. This requires a different kind of training. She set up exercises where nothing went as planned. Objectives changed mid-mission. Equipment failed. Teammates were removed without warning. The warriors had to adapt constantly. At first, they failed badly. They became confused and frustrated. They argued with each other. They made terrible decisions. But slowly, they began to learn. They stopped expecting perfection. They started expecting problems. They developed contingency plans. They learned to communicate under pressure. Better, Chen said on the fifth day. You are starting to think like survivors instead of performers." By now, the warriors had been awake for over 100 hours. They were barely functional. They hallucinated. They stumbled. They spoke nonsense. But they did not quit. Chen finally allowed them to sleep, just 4 hours. Then she woke them and started again. The training continued for 40 days. Each day brought new challenges, new suffering, new lessons. The warriors learned to embrace discomfort. They learned to push past limits they had thought were real. They learned to support each other in ways their culture had never taught them. By the end, only 140 warriors remained. 60 had quit or been removed for medical reasons. The survivors were different people than they had been. They moved differently. They thought differently. They looked at the world differently. Commander Vexler met with Sergeant Major Chen after the final exercise. "What do you think?" he asked. Chen looked at the exhausted but proud warriors below. "They're not finished. This was just the beginning, but they've learned the most important lesson." "What lesson?" "That they are more than they believed. That limits are mostly mental. That suffering is temporary but quitting is permanent." She paused. "Your people have always been warriors by birth. Now they are becoming warriors by choice. That is the difference that matters." Vexler nodded slowly. He finally understood what the humans had known all along. The Corthani had been playing at war. The humans had been fighting for survival. There was no comparison. "Will you stay?" he asked. "Will you continue training our warriors?" Chen smiled. "That's why we're here, Commander. Your people asked for help. We're going to give it. By the time we're done, no one in the galaxy will want to fight the Corthani again." It was a bold promise, but watching his transformed warriors, Vexler believed it might be true. The insane human training methods had worked. They had broken everything the Corthani thought they knew about warfare. And they were just getting started. 6 months had passed since the human trainers arrived at the Corthani orbital station. The changes were visible everywhere. The training facilities had been completely redesigned. Gone were the clean, orderly practice halls where warriors had once drilled perfect techniques. In their place were mud pits, obstacle courses, and combat arenas designed to simulate the chaos of real warfare. Commander Vexler walked through the new facilities with Sergeant Major Chen at his side. Around them, Corthani warriors trained in ways their ancestors would not have recognized. In one area, warriors crawled through tunnels filled with smoke and noise. In another, they fought hand-to-hand while water poured down on them from above. In a third, they completed obstacle courses while carrying wounded comrades on their backs. "The first class has completed the full program," Chen said. 140 warriors who went through the initial 40-day training, plus another 6 months of advanced instruction. They're ready for evaluation." "Show me," Vexler said. Chen led him to a large arena where a demonstration had been prepared. The original 140 warriors stood at one end. At the other end stood 200 warriors from the Imperial Guard, the most elite soldiers the Corthani Empire had. These were veterans with decades of experience, the best of the best by traditional standards. "The exercise is simple," Chen explained. "Capture the flag. No lethal weapons, but contact is full force. The team that brings the other team's flag back to their base wins." Vexler studied the two groups. The Imperial Guard looked confident. They were bigger, more experienced, and they outnumbered the new warriors significantly. By any reasonable measure, they should win easily. The exercise began. What followed was something Vexler would remember for the rest of his life. The Imperial Guard advanced in perfect formation, just as they had been trained. They moved with precision and coordination, covering each other flawlessly. The new warriors did not form a line. They scattered. They used the terrain. They appeared from unexpected directions. They did not fight fair. Within minutes, the Imperial Guard's formation had collapsed. Warriors emerged from hiding spots to attack from behind. Small teams drew groups of guards into ambushes. When the guards tried to regroup, they were hit again from different angles. The guards were skilled fighters. In one-on-one combat they were often superior, but they were never given the chance for one-on-one combat. They were always outnumbered at the point of attack, always caught off balance, always reacting instead of acting. In less than 30 minutes, it was over. The new warriors had captured the Imperial Guard's flag with minimal casualties. The guards, despite their numbers and experience, had been completely outmaneuvered. The commander of the Imperial Guard, a veteran named Korath, approached Vexler after the exercise. He looked shaken. "How?" he asked. "They are less skilled than my warriors. They are younger and less experienced. How did they defeat us so thoroughly?" "They are not less skilled," Chen said. "They are differently skilled. Your warriors know how to fight. These warriors know how to win. There is a difference." She called over one of the new warriors, a young female named Kira. Vexler remembered her from the first day of training. She had asked about sleep. She had seemed uncertain and afraid. That warrior was gone. In her place stood someone different, someone harder, someone confident in a way that came from having been tested and having survived. "Explain your strategy," Chen told her. Kira nodded. "The Imperial Guard fights in formations because that is how they were trained. Formations work when both sides follow the same rules. We do not follow rules. We identify the enemy's assumptions and attack those assumptions." "But you are fewer in number," Korath said. "You should not have been able to overwhelm us." "We were never fewer at the point of attack," Kira explained. "We chose when and where to fight. We made sure we always had local superiority. Numbers across the whole battlefield do not matter. Numbers at the specific point of contact matter." Korath looked at her with a mixture of respect and unease. "Where did you learn this?" "From the humans," Kira said. "And from pain. We learned by suffering. We learned by failing. We learned by being pushed until we broke and then discovering we could still fight after breaking." Vexler watched this exchange with satisfaction. This was what he had hoped for. This was why he had swallowed his pride and asked the humans for help. After the demonstration, Vexler met with his senior staff to discuss the results. The room was filled with high-ranking officers, many of whom had opposed the human training program from the beginning. "The results speak for themselves," Vexler said. 140 warriors defeated 200 Imperial Guards in open combat, not through superior weapons or numbers, but through superior training. Admiral Threx, the oldest officer present, shook his head. "This is one exercise. We cannot reshape our entire military based on one demonstration." "It was not just one exercise," Chen said. "We have run dozens of simulations and practical tests. In every scenario, the warriors who completed our program outperformed traditional warriors by significant margins, sometimes by factors of 3 or 4 to 1. "Your methods are brutal," another officer said. "You torture our warriors, you break them down. This is not how the Korthani have trained for 10,000 years." "The Korthani way produced warriors who lost a war they should have won," Chen replied calmly. "You had every advantage, better technology, more soldiers, superior physical capabilities. You lost because your warriors did not know how to suffer. When things went wrong, they had no experience with adversity. They broke." The room fell silent. No one liked hearing this, but no one could argue with it either. "Human military doctrine is built on one principle," Chen continued. "Prepare for the worst. We assume everything will go wrong. We train in conditions far worse than actual combat. When our soldiers face real enemies, they are almost relieved. The enemy is easier than training." She pulled up statistics on the room's display screens. "During the war, your casualty rates were 3 times higher than ours despite your physical advantages. Your warriors surrendered at rates 10 times higher than ours. Your units broke and fled at rates we had never seen in any previous conflict. "You blame our warriors?" Threx asked angrily. "I blame your training," Chen said. "Your warriors were brave, they were skilled, they were dedicated, but they were not prepared for what they faced. That is a failure of training, not character." Vexler raised his hand to silence the growing argument. "Enough, we can debate philosophy later. The question now is simple: do we expand the program?" He looked around the room. "I want honest opinions, no politics, just your assessment of what we have seen." One by one, the officers spoke. Some remained skeptical, but most, even those who had opposed the program, admitted that the results were impressive. The warriors who had completed the human training were clearly superior in practical combat situations. "Then we expand," Vexler decided. "We will begin with 5,000 warriors. If the results hold, we will expand further. Within 5 years, I want our entire military trained using these methods." "This will be controversial," Threx warned. "Many will see it as abandoning our traditions." "Our traditions lost us a war," Vexler said. "I would rather have effective warriors than traditional ones." After the meeting, Chen found Vexler alone on the observation deck. He was staring at the stars, lost in thought. "You took a big risk today," she said. "Not everyone will support this." "I know," Vexler replied, "but I keep thinking about the war. I keep thinking about all the warriors who died because we were too proud to question our methods." He paused. "How many could we have saved if we had trained differently?" "You can't change the past," Chen said. "You can only shape the future." "Is that human wisdom?" "It's universal wisdom. Every species learns it eventually, usually the hard way." Vexler turned to face her. "When you first arrived, I thought you were arrogant. You walked into our station and told us everything we knew was wrong. I wanted to throw you out." "What changed?" "I watched you with our warriors. I saw how hard you pushed them, but I also saw how much you cared. You were not trying to humiliate us. You were trying to save us." He paused. "Why, we were your enemies. We invaded your world." Chen was quiet for a moment. "War is not personal to humans. We fight to win and then we move on. Holding grudges against former enemies is inefficient. It's better to make allies. Even allies who tried to conquer you. Especially those. Former enemies make the best allies because they know what you're capable of. They respect you in a way that others don't." Vexler considered this. It was a strange philosophy, but he was beginning to understand it. Humans were practical in ways the Corthani had never been. They did what worked, regardless of tradition or pride. "The training program is only the beginning," Chen said. "If you really want to transform your military, you need to change more than methods. You need to change culture." "What do you mean?" "Your warriors fight for honor, for glory, for the empire. Those are good motivations, but they're not enough. Human soldiers fight for each other. The person next to them matters more than any flag or ideal." She gestured toward the training floor below, where warriors were helping each other through an obstacle course. "Watch them. See how they work together. That started during the hard training. When you suffer alongside someone, you form bonds that nothing can break. Those bonds are worth more than any weapon." Vexler watched his warriors. She was right. They moved differently now. They communicated without speaking. They anticipated each other's needs. They were becoming something more than individuals. "How do we build that across our entire military?" he asked. "Same way we built it here: shared hardship, common suffering, training that is so difficult it can only be survived together." Chen paused. "It takes time, years, but once it's established, it becomes self-sustaining. Veterans train recruits. The culture passes down. And the insanity, the brutal methods, will our people accept them?" Chen smiled. "They will when they see the results. Success is the best argument. When your warriors start winning battles they should have lost, when they come home alive from situations that should have killed them, the skeptics will quiet down. She was right, Vexler knew. Results mattered more than opinions, and the results so far had been undeniable. "We have much to learn from you," he admitted. "And we have things to learn from you," Chen replied. "Your formal combat techniques are beautiful. Your discipline is incredible. Your physical capabilities are beyond anything humans can match naturally. The goal is not to replace your strengths with ours. It's to combine them. A fusion of methods." Exactly. The best of both worlds. Corthani's strength and technique with human adaptability and mental toughness. That combination could be unstoppable. Vexler felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Real hope for the future of his people. The insane human training methods had already transformed his warriors. Given enough time, they might transform his entire civilization. And perhaps out of the ashes of war, something better would be born. 3 years after the training program began, the galaxy learned to fear the Corthani again. But this time, the fear was different. It was not fear of their numbers or their technology. It was fear of what they had become. The first real test came when a pirate fleet attacked a Corthani colony on the outer rim. The pirates were a coalition of several species, well-armed and experienced raiders who had been terrorizing shipping lanes for decades. They expected an easy target. They found something very different. The colony's garrison consisted of 500 warriors, all of whom had completed the human training program. When the pirates landed with 3,000 troops, expecting minimal resistance, they were met with coordinated chaos. The Corthani did not defend in the traditional sense. They did not form lines or hold positions. Instead, they scattered into the colony's infrastructure and began a campaign of hit-and-run warfare that the pirates had never experienced. Attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. Supply lines were cut, leaders were assassinated, traps were set and sprung. The pirates found themselves fighting an enemy they could not pin down, could not predict, could not understand. Within 2 weeks, the pirate force had been reduced by half. The survivors fled, spreading stories of Corthani warriors who fought like demons, who appeared from shadows, who kept coming no matter how badly they were hurt. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. Other species took notice. The Corthani, who had been quietly rebuilding their military reputation, were suddenly being discussed with a new kind of respect. Commander Vexler, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. But it was Sergeant Major Chen's assessment that meant the most to him. "Your warriors performed excellently," she said. "They adapted to the situation, used their environment effectively, and maintained unit cohesion throughout. Most importantly, they did not give up when things got hard. That is the mark of true warriors." "They learned from the best," Vexler said. "They learned from pain," Chen corrected. "We just taught them how to use it." The success at the colony was followed by others. Corthani forces began winning engagements they would have lost 3 years earlier. More importantly, they were winning with fewer casualties. The warriors were smarter, more adaptable, more resilient. But the true test came when a new threat emerged from the galactic core. The Vorn Collective was a machine civilization that had been dormant for centuries. Something had awakened them, and they began expanding aggressively, consuming everything in their path. Their forces were vast, their technology was advanced, and they had no concept of fear or mercy. The Galactic Council, a loose alliance of the major spacefaring species, called an emergency meeting. The humans and Corthani were both invited to send representatives. Fleet Admiral Vexler attended along with Chen, who had become something of a legend among the Corthani. The other species watched them with curiosity and wariness. Former enemies, now allies, it was an unusual sight. The briefing was grim. The Vorn had already destroyed 6 worlds and showed no signs of stopping. Their forces were estimated in the millions. Their technology was adaptive, constantly learning from each engagement and improving. "We need a unified response," the council chairman said. "No single species can stand against this threat alone." The debate that followed was predictable. Each species wanted to lead. Each had their own strategies and priorities. Unity seemed impossible. Then Vexler stood to speak. "I will tell you something that shames my people," he said. 5 years ago, we went to war with humanity. We had every advantage. We should have won easily. We did not. We lost badly because we did not know how to fight a real war." The room fell silent. It was rare for any species to admit defeat so openly. "After the war, we asked the humans for help. We swallowed our pride and admitted that our ways were inferior. They sent trainers to our worlds. They taught us methods we thought were barbaric, insane, beyond reason." He paused, looking around the room. "Those methods saved us. Our warriors are now different creatures than they were 5 years ago. Not because of new weapons or technology, but because of how they think, how they train, how they face adversity. We have become warriors in the true sense of the word." He turned to the human delegation. "I propose that humanity leads this war, not because they are the strongest or the most numerous, but because they know something the rest of us do not. They know how to survive. They know how to win against impossible odds. They know how to teach others to do the same." The room erupted in protests. Pride, politics, ancient rivalries all demanded attention, but Vexler continued. "The Korthani will follow human leadership. We will contribute our full military strength to their strategy, and we will help train any species that wishes to learn what they taught us." This caused even more commotion. The Korthani, one of the most proud species in the galaxy, volunteering to follow humans. It was unthinkable. But one by one, other species began to consider the offer. The Korthani transformation was well known. Their recent military successes had been impossible to ignore. If the humans could do for others what they had done for the Korthani, perhaps there was hope against the Vorn. After hours of debate, a decision was reached. A human general would command the unified fleet. Human trainers would be sent to other species to share their methods. The Korthani would serve as proof of concept, demonstrating what the training could achieve. It was not a perfect solution. Many species remained skeptical or hostile, but it was a beginning. In the months that followed, Chen and other human instructors spread across the galaxy. They brought their insane training methods to species who had never experienced such hardship. Many rejected the approach outright. Others tried and failed. But some, like the Korthani, embraced the suffering and emerged transformed. The war against the Vorn was long and brutal. The Machine Collective was relentless, adapting to every strategy, replacing losses faster than they could be inflicted. Many battles were lost. Many worlds fell. But the unified forces held. They held because they had learned the lessons that humans had tried to teach. They held because they knew that pain was temporary and quitting was permanent. They held because they had been broken down and rebuilt stronger. The final battle took place above the Vorn homeworld. A fleet of 1,000 ships from 12 species faced the largest machine force ever assembled. The odds were terrible. Logic said retreat was the only option. But retreat was not discussed. The warriors who crewed those ships had been through hell in their training. They had already faced worse than death. They had already discovered that their limits were lies. They fought, they died, they kept fighting. In the end, the Vorn were defeated. Not destroyed entirely, but broken, scattered, forced back into dormancy. The cost was enormous. Hundreds of ships lost. Millions of lives ended. But the galaxy survived. In the aftermath, Fleet Admiral Vexler stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, looking at the debris field where the battle had been fought. Chen stood beside him, older now, scarred from years of war. "We did it," Vexler said. "Against all odds we did it." "You did it," Chen replied. You and the other species who were willing to learn, we just showed you the path. Vexler shook his head. 5 years ago, my people would have broken in that battle. We would have retreated when the losses mounted. We would have sought an honorable surrender rather than continue fighting. And now we know there is no surrender, there is no retreat. There is only forward, always forward until victory or death. He paused. Your training methods seemed insane to us. We called them barbaric, cruel, unnecessary. We were wrong. They are all those things, Chen admitted. They are also effective. In war, effective is all that matters. Vexler turned to face her fully. What will you do now? The war is over. Your work here is done. Chen smiled, the same hard smile she had worn since the first day they met. There are always more wars, always more species that need to learn, always more warriors to train. She paused. Besides, I've grown fond of you overgrown lizards. Can't leave now. Vexler made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was still a strange expression for a Corthani. You called us lizards. Would you prefer something else? No, I think I am honored to be called a lizard by you. They stood in silence watching the stars. Two warriors from two species that had once been enemies. Now allies, now friends. The human training methods had been called insane. They had been called brutal and barbaric. They had been called many things by many species who thought they knew better. But they had worked. They had transformed the Corthani from proud failures into humble victors. They had helped save the galaxy from extinction. And somewhere in the galaxy, new recruits were learning the same lessons. They were running until they collapsed, fighting until they broke, suffering until they discovered who they really were. The insane methods continued because they were effective. And in the end, that was all that mattered. 10 years after the war against the Vorn, the Galactic Council held a special ceremony on Earth. It was the first time such an event had taken place on the human homeworld. Species from across the galaxy had sent representatives. Fleet Admiral Vexler stood at the front of the assembly, wearing his ceremonial armor. Beside him was Sergeant Major Chen, now retired from active service but still serving as an advisor to the Joint Training Program. The ceremony was to commemorate the anniversary of the victory over the Vorn, but it was also something more. It was a recognition of how much had changed in the decade since humans had begun sharing their training methods with the galaxy. Vexler had been asked to speak. He had spent weeks preparing his words, knowing that this moment would be remembered. 10 years ago, I stood before the Galactic Council and admitted something that shamed my people, he began. I admitted that the Corthani, who had been warriors for 10,000 years, did not know how to fight a real war. I admitted that we had been defeated by a younger, weaker species because they understood something we did not. He looked out at the assembly. Hundreds of faces, dozens of species, all watching him. Today I stand before you not in shame, but in gratitude. What the humans taught us saved my people. It saved many peoples. It saved the galaxy itself. He turned to Chen, who stood quietly beside him. This woman came to our world with two companions. She told us that everything we knew was wrong. She told us that our training was worthless, our methods were flawed, our warriors were unprepared. He paused. We wanted to kill her. Light laughter rippled through the assembly. Instead, we listened. We suffered through training that seemed designed to break us. We questioned our traditions, our pride, our identity. It was the hardest thing the Corthani have ever done. It was also the best thing. He straightened to his full height, his forearms spread wide. The human training methods were called insane. They were called barbaric. They were called impossible for other species to endure. These criticisms were not wrong. The methods are extreme. They demand suffering. They break warriors down to nothing before building them back up. But they work. In the 10 years since we began the Joint Training Program, warriors from 37 species have completed the full course. Every species that has adopted these methods has seen dramatic improvements in combat effectiveness. Casualty rates have dropped. Victory rates have risen. Most importantly, warriors no longer break when things go wrong. They adapt. They overcome. They survive. He pointed to the sky above them. The Vorn threatened to destroy everything we had built. They were machines without fear, without mercy, without limits. Logic said we could not defeat them. Our old ways would have led to surrender or extinction. But we did not use our old ways. We used what the humans taught us. We used pain as a teacher. We used suffering as preparation. We used hardship as training for the hardship to come. And we won. The assembly erupted in applause. Vexler waited for it to subside before continuing. I want to tell you what I have learned in these 10 years. Not about combat or strategy, but about what makes warriors truly strong. The Korthani believed that strength came from birth. We bred our warriors for size, speed, and power. We believed that physical superiority was the key to victory. The humans showed us that strength comes from somewhere else. It comes from the mind. It comes from the will to continue when everything says stop. It comes from the refusal to quit, no matter what. This kind of strength cannot be bred, it must be forged, and the forge is suffering. He looked directly at the human delegation. Your training methods seemed cruel to us. You made your warriors run until they collapsed, then made them run more. You kept them awake for days. You put them in situations designed to break them. We did not understand. We asked, why make your warriors suffer? Why not train them in comfort? The answer is simple. Comfort does not prepare warriors for war. War is not comfortable. War is pain and fear and chaos. Warriors trained in comfort will meet their limits for the first time on the battlefield. By then, it is too late to learn. Warriors trained in suffering have already met their limits. They have already discovered that those limits are lies. They have already learned that the body can do far more than the mind believes. When they face combat, they are not surprised. They are ready. Vexler stepped back and gestured to Chen. This woman has trained more warriors than anyone alive. She has taken the weak and made them strong. She has taken the proud and made them humble. She has taken the defeated and made them victorious. She never told us that her methods were kind. She told us they were effective. She was right. Chen stepped forward to speak. She was older now, her hair gray, her face lined with decades of hard service, but she still moved with the quiet confidence of a predator. Admiral Vexler has been too generous, she said. The Korthani succeeded because they chose to succeed. We showed them the path. They walked it themselves. I have spent my life training warriors. I have worked with more species than I can count. I have seen every kind of soldier, from the greatest to the worst. What separates them is not skill or strength or intelligence. It is will. The warrior who refuses to quit will always defeat the warrior who gives up. Always. This is the one truth that applies across all species, all cultures, all situations. Our training methods are designed to build will. Everything else, the physical exercises, the sleep deprivation, the psychological stress, is just a means to that end. We break warriors down so they can discover what they are really made of. We push them past their limits so they learn that limits are choices, not facts. She looked out at the assembly with hard eyes. Some of you still think our methods are barbaric. Some of you have refused to adopt them. That is your choice. But remember this, when the next threat comes, and there will always be a next threat, the species that have learned to suffer will survive. The others may not. War is not fair. War is not honorable. War is survival. The species that understands this will outlast the species that does not. She stepped back beside Vexler. The ceremony continued with speeches from other leaders, celebrations of the alliance that had saved the galaxy, and promises of continued cooperation. But the words of Vexler and Chen were what everyone remembered. Later that evening, The two of them stood alone on a balcony overlooking the ceremony grounds. Below, species that had once been enemies mingled and talked. The scene would have been impossible 10 years ago. "Do you think they understood?" Vexler asked. "Some of them," Chen replied. "The ones who have been through the training understood. The others," she shrugged. "They will learn when they have to. That is how it always goes." "You sound cynical." "I sound realistic. Peace never lasts. There is always another war. The only question is whether you are ready for it." Vexler considered this. It was a harsh philosophy, but his experiences had proven it true. "What will you do now?" he asked. "You have retired from active service. The training program runs itself. What is left for you?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "I have been thinking about writing a book," she said. "A proper manual of our training methods, something that other species can use long after we are gone. The insane human training methods, preserved for eternity." "Something like that," she smiled slightly. "The methods are not really insane. They are just honest. They accept that war is terrible and prepare warriors accordingly. Every species discovers this eventually. We just help them discover it faster." Vexler looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, new threats were forming. New enemies were growing strong. The peace they enjoyed would not last forever. But when the next war came, the galaxy would be ready. 37 species had learned what humans had always known. Pain was a teacher. Suffering was preparation. The warrior who refused to quit could not be defeated. "Thank you," Vexler said quietly. "For what?" "For everything, for coming to our world, for teaching us, for not giving up on us when we wanted to quit." He paused. "For showing us what we could become." Chen nodded slowly. "That is what trainers do. We see the potential that warriors cannot see in themselves. We push them until they find it. Even when they hate you for it. Especially then. Hate means they are engaged. Hate means they care. It is indifference that kills warriors, not hate." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the celebrations below. Two warriors from two species, bound by shared hardship and mutual respect. It was an unlikely friendship, but it had been forged in the fire of training that others called insane. The human methods had been proven effective. They had saved the Corthani. They had helped save the galaxy. They would continue to save lives as long as there were warriors willing to embrace the suffering. And there would always be such warriors. Because in the end, the lesson was simple. Limits were lies, pain was temporary, and the warrior who refused to quit would always triumph. This was the truth that humans had discovered through millennia of warfare. This was the truth they had shared with the galaxy. This was the truth that would protect civilization for generations to come. The insane training methods were not insane at all. They were just effective. And in war, effective was all that mattered.